listening to the Play Therapy Parenting Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brenna Hicks, the Kid Counselor. This is the Play Therapy Parenting Podcast, where I give you insight, awareness, and enlightenment about your parenting and your relationship with your kids. As you know, I have been going through a series of the rules of thumb in the child-parent relationship therapy program, which is the curriculum used in the in-home play therapy program that we offer. And today we are talking about one of my favorite rules of thumb. You can't give away that which you don't possess. And it is so easy as a parent, as adults in the lives of kids, it is so easy to not be intentionally good to ourselves. And what I mean by that is we don't always take care of ourselves well. We don't always think about the things that we need and that we require so that we can be the best versions of ourselves. And in the therapist world, we talk about that as self-care. So as we go through graduate school and as we learn how to be a therapist, we will often talk about the concept of self-care. And that's really important as a therapist because you have to take care of yourself well in order to care for others. And so we learn techniques and tips and strategies to make sure that we're doing appropriate self-care so that we don't get burned out as a therapist. But we don't hear anything about that related to parenting. And it's just as important because just as therapists are walking alongside and caring for their clients, parents are walking alongside and caring for their kids. So there's actually a lot of similarities there, and you can't give away that which you don't possess is the reminder and the encouragement that we have to make sure that we're being good to ourselves. So 3 points that I'd like to share about that rule of thumb today. First, I'm sure maybe you've heard the concept of you have to give out of the overflow, or maybe you've heard that you can't take something out of a vacuum. So there's all kinds of analogies and phrases that we use that represent the concept. But we have to give to our kids out of the overflow of our own cup. So we'll talk about what that looks like. Second point is it's important to be intentional about this. This doesn't happen casually. You don't get filled up and you're not good to yourself unless there's intention and purpose behind it. So we'll look at what that means. And then finally, kids will not receive the things that we want to extend to them if we haven't already extended it to ourselves. And we'll unpack that and we'll tease that apart as well. The path to calm, confident, and in control parenting starts now. So I suspect most of you have probably flown, and if you've never flown, I'll make sense of this for you in just a second. But for those of you who have gotten on an airplane and you're still on the runway and you're getting ready to take off and the flight attendants go through their departure spiel, right? So they show you where the exits are. They ask the people in the exit row if they're able to help in an emergency, and they go through all of the things you need to know, how to buckle your seatbelt, where your flotation devices are, et cetera, et cetera. So what do they say regarding if you are traveling with young kids and we were to lose cabin pressure? So a lot of you are probably saying oxygen masks right now. Yes. So they say, should we lose cabin pressure, oxygen masks will drop from the ceiling, and they usually have a little oxygen mask that they demonstrate with. So, they hold the string and it pops down. And what do they always say at the end of that part? If you are an adult traveling with small children, place the mask on your own mouth and nose first before you assist them. And even before I was a parent, even when the first time I flew was 13 years old. So I remember even a long time ago thinking to myself, who in the world would be selfish enough to worry about themselves before they would worry about their own kids or a child sitting next to them? I mean, you would kind of by default want to help kids and make sure that they're okay before you helped yourself. I remember thinking that even before I was a parent. And that always kind of sat strangely with me, to be honest. But in working through the in-home play therapy program curriculum, and you can't give away that which you don't possess, that became very clear to me. Because if you are worried about all the kids in your row and you're getting them all situated, and then you pass out because you didn't have enough oxygen, you're of no help to anyone. So it doesn't do anyone any good, including the children, for you to worry about them before you worry about yourself, because then you can't help at all. And that is sometimes really difficult. I think maybe sometimes it's more of a struggle for moms than dads, but I think as a whole, that is a difficult concept to say, I have to put myself first sometimes. I have to take care of myself sometimes. I have to make sure that I'm filled up first. And the oxygen mask analogy is so helpful because it reminds us that we have to make sure that we are able to do the things that our kids need, but that comes from within first and foremost. So let's unpack that a little bit. You can't give out of emptiness. You can't give out of a vacuum. So that whole concept of your cup is either half full, half empty, or fully full, fully empty, I suppose. So the idea of your cup, you have to give out of an overflow. In other words, when you are trying to give of yourself, so you're trying to be patient, you're trying to be kind, you're trying to be respectful, you're trying to be gentle, you're trying to show love, you're trying to show empathy, compassion, whatever it is, that's really difficult, if not impossible, when you have nothing left in your cup. And so that word picture is also really helpful. Oxygen mask analogy, very helpful, but the word picture of the cup, and if it's almost empty or it is empty, there's nothing left. You can't pour anything out of it. And so we have to be really intentional that, life is busy. Life is overwhelming. We get run ragged. We feel pulled in 100 directions. Parenting takes a lot. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of organization. It takes a lot of intention and purpose. And that is tiring and that is exhausting. And so we have to recharge. We can't run that pace and keep that pace without giving ourselves moments where we get refilled, we get recharged, we get revived. And so we give out of the overflow, meaning we have to make sure that we put stuff into the cup for us, and then out of that cup, we can pour into other people. So we have to be patient with ourselves in order to be patient with our kids. We have to be forgiving of ourselves in order to be forgiving of our kids. So we have to first extend it to ourselves before we can extend it elsewhere. So we give out of the overflow, but if there's nothing there, we have nothing to give. So that's really a fundamental principle of this rule of thumb. We have to work on making sure that we are refilled. Second, this does not happen naturally. Unfortunately, we can't just be made aware of this concept and say, okay, good, well, now I'll just make sure that I'm refilled. That would be lovely if it worked that way, but we have to be really purposeful and we have to work on it. This is not something that just by default happens. We don't just by default have everything poured into us and we just feel completely rejuvenated and ready to go again. It really does require that we are actively seeking the things that are going to refill us. We actually have to be thinking through, what do I need in this moment that will best equip me to be kind with my kids, to be patient with my kids? Do I need to go take a walk? Do I need to go listen to my favorite song? Do I need to, at the end of the day, take a bath? Do I need to read a book? Do I need to pray? Do I need to go talk to a friend? Do I need to lock myself in the closet and cry for 5 minutes? I mean, there's all kinds of ways that people recharge and refill. And I think largely it kind of ties back to whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, or an ambivert. So I personally, I'm introverted. So reading a book or listening to music or relaxing by the pool or at the beach, those are things that fill me up. Other people, they want to be around a whole bunch of people. They want to go out somewhere. They want to have people over. Whatever it is for you that fills you up, learn that about yourself. Do you need, and let me pause and take a related aside for a second, because it's important to recognize that there are things that fill us up on a broad scale, and then there are things that fill us up on a moment by moment scale. In other words, I don't always have access to a beach where I can just go sit and read a book at the beach. So that's something that's going to fill me up on a broad scale. Like if I know this weekend I'm going to go to the beach, I look forward to it. And then I come back and I'm like, oh gosh, I just feel so rested. Okay. But in the moment when your kid is screaming and you're really angry and you're both escalating and you're not really sure what to do, what fills you up in that moment can't be, well, I just need to go to the beach. So there has to be awareness on both sides. What's the big picture that fills me up? What's the thing that I need to do right now in this moment that's going to fill me up enough to best handle this situation? Do I need to take a deep breath? Do I need to close my eyes and count to 10? Do I need to go to another room, give myself a 30-second break and come back? Whatever it is in that moment is also the recharge and the refill so that you can give away what you possess after you've given it to yourself. So it's not something that will just naturally happen. There's no default setting where you just can get yourself filled up. It does have to be purposeful and intentional. And then finally, our kids get what we have already given to ourselves. And then the converse is true as well. Kids will not get what we don't give to ourselves. In other words, if we can't be understanding of our own faults and failures and mistakes, it's very unlikely we will do that with our kids. If we can't be forgiving of ourselves, we likely will not forgive our kids easily. We have to be patient with ourselves to be patient with our kids. We have to have empathy for ourselves before we can be empathic for our kids. So there is very much a connection between what we do to ourselves and what we're able then to do for our kids. So this is actually a pretty powerful concept because we model for our kids what it means to exhibit those characteristics. So if our children watch us beat ourselves up, if our children watch us be really hard on ourselves, never extend patience, never extend grace, never extend forgiveness to ourselves, they don't have a model for what that looks like to do that for others. But if we say, gosh, you know what, I really messed that up and I'm bummed, but I'm going to let that be a lesson and I'm going to try to get better next time. That is modeling self-forgiveness. It's modeling self-control. It's modeling grace. It's modeling lots of things for our kids. So we have to be aware that as we model those things, they learn how to do those. But then, of course, we also, when we do that to ourselves, we then are equipped to do that for our kids. So then they get the personal experience of having those things extended toward them as well once it's already been extended to us. So that's a pretty deep level relational concept that goes on. And it's helpful for us to be aware of that because not only do we want to demonstrate for our kids what it looks like, but they also need to experience those things once we've already given them to ourselves. We obviously want to be kind. We want to be effective. We want to be confident. We want to be patient. We want to be lots of things with our kids. But we have to extend all of those to ourselves first. So we obviously have to get our cups filled up. It doesn't naturally happen. We have to work at it. And we have to model for them the characteristics that we want them to be able to show to others. So now that you know all of this information, now that you have an idea of the rule of thumb, you can't give away that which you don't possess. Now that you have the word picture of the filling of your cup and you have to pour out of something in the cup rather than nothing in the cup, the oxygen mask analogy, you're aware of all this now. What does that mean practically speaking? What can you do today? What can you do in this moment? What can you do this week to meet the need of what you are most requiring? What is going to allow you to be good to yourself? What do you want? What do you need? What do you feel would best fill you up? Is it time with friends? Is it time at the beach? Is it to start reading a book? Is it to start journaling? Is it to give yourself 10 minutes every midday just to close your eyes and think and work through whatever's jumbled around in your brain. It's going to be different for everybody. Maybe what is your greatest area of struggle of taking care of yourself? Are you impatient with yourself? Are you unforgiving? Are you hard on yourself? Do you hold yourself too high of expectations? What area or what thing do you most need to be kind to yourself this week? And that is the start, because the more we start thinking about how do we best care for ourselves, how do we best be good to ourselves, how do we best fill ourselves up, then out of the overflow, we are better versions of ourselves as parents and as adults in the lives of our kids. They get the best of us when we are giving the best to ourselves. So we can't get bogged down in the busyness and in the distraction and in the chaotic nature of life and parenting and everything that we have to do. That takes a lot out of us. We have to be purposeful about filling ourselves back up, and therefore you can't give away that which you don't possess. In the next episode, in this series, in the Child-Parent Relationship Therapy Rule of Thumb series, the rule of thumb, super helpful rule of thumb, never do for a child that which they can do for themselves. So we will unpack that together next time. Really a huge game-changing concept for building self-confidence, self-esteem, and self-responsibility in our children. So never do for a child that which they can do for themselves will be the next episode in this series. As always, thank you for being a part. I will talk to you again soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Play Therapy Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks. For more parenting training and to subscribe to our newsletter, go to www.thekidcounselor.com.